For one person, for a dramatist to dominate the literal world and the theater for 5 centuries, he must have something special to offer. For a person to have so much influence on the 4 corners of the world, his work should be phenomenal, out of the ordinary. For a person to have his books read, translated, studied in every continent, he must be gifted beyond measure. That person is William Shakespeare. But who is William Shakespeare? And what is his speciality? William Shakespeare was a prolific writer of the Elizabethan and Jacobean era. He was a poet and a playwright. When Shakespeare's career had reached its peak, he also became a director, a producer, and part owner of the Globe Theatre. Essentially, Shakespeare became a businessman. He rented properties in London while buying other properties in Stratford-upon-Avon. The period of William Shakespeare was also called the Renaissance period. It was a period of great change in many facets of life, in art, that is painting, in science, in politics, and in drama. It was a period of reawakening. The English people borrowed a lot from the ancient regimes. Which were the ancient regimes? The ancient regimes were Greece and Rome. They borrowed many things which happened during that era. England was on a road to transition. It was on a road to change. Shakespeare is believed to have been born around 23 April 1564. He was the son of John Shakespeare and Mary Arden. His birth is commonly celebrated on 23 April. But what has been established is that Shakespeare was baptized on the 26th of April 1564 and died on 23 April 1616, date he is believed to have been born. He is buried at Holy Trinity Church in England. His plays are the greatest legacy he left for the world. William Shakespeare is believed to have left a legacy of 37 plays, all of which are masterpieces. He also wrote a number of sonnets. Shakespeare's plays were written for the theatre. They were written to be performed. Who were Shakespeare's audience? Shakespeare's audience included sailors, soldiers, clergymen, nobles, common people, intellectuals, historians, a host of people. He tried to please everyone. He tried to entertain everyone. His primary motive was to make money in London. William Shakespeare was the son of John Shakespeare. John was a glove merchant, and at one time is believed to have had some civic position in matters of Stratford. In other words, he was not of the poor class. And as a result, it is believed that John sent his son William to a grammar school. The name of that grammar school was King's New School. At King's New School, Shakespeare is believed to have learned some basic Latin and grammar. William Shakespeare stayed with his family at a house in Henley Street until he was 18. At 18, William married Anne Hathaway, who was 26. That is in 1582. He had children, Susanna, twins Hamlet and Juliet. Shakespeare then disappeared from public life in 1585 until 1592, when his works began to appear on the London stage. These are called Shakespeare's lost years. That is between 1585 and 1592. Where was Shakespeare? It is believed that these were the formative years of Shakespeare as a great writer. When he disappeared, he was focusing on his art. He was focusing on his talent. And then the books or scripts began to appear, and Shakespeare announced himself to the world. After 1594, Shakespeare's plays appeared at Lord Chamberlain's Men, which was a theatre in London. Later in 1603, the King's Men was born after King James came to power. He had assumed power in 1601 at the death of Queen Elizabeth I. In 1599, Shakespeare formed the Globe Theatre. He retired from the stage in 1610, but however, he continued to write. He finished his last book in 1613 together with a colleague, John Fletcher, and the book was called Two Noble Kingsmen. It was a collaboration. He spent time in Stratford, where he had bought the second largest home in that area. Why he continues to fascinate audiences around the world, readers, why many people still hit the market with productions of his book, that is a question we have to answer. Shakespeare is an enigma, a legend, an icon. William Shakespeare is considered one of the greatest writers ever to use the English language. Some call him a verbal genius. He is also associated with the creation of the Globe Theatre in London, a historical landmark. It is a historical theatre and company, now a tourist attraction, which is visited by hundreds of thousands of tourists every year. What did Shakespeare focus on? Shakespeare's works can be divided into basically three categories. Although some have gone to try and find subcategories. He wrote comedies, he wrote tragedies, and histories. His plays were in prose and poetic verse. He is the most recognized dramatist in the world. However, little of his real life is known. Records didn't survive from the period of Shakespeare. When we talk of records, talking of things like letters, diaries, much of what we know of Shakespeare comes out of conjecture. This makes him a genius, an outstanding man with a mystery associated with him. Many interpretations of the man and his works have come up, hence the tag of a legend. His works constitute a basis for the current English language, study of literature in general. Shakespeare is said to have left about 37 plays. Between 1589 and 1591, he wrote plays such as King Henry IV, Part 1 to 3, and Richard III. He was focusing on histories. These are books based on the actual events which took place in the history of various kingdoms. From the late 80s, he wrote comedies, books with comic sequences and pairs of plots. The main plot and a subplot. Examples of such books include Twelfth Night, Much Ado About Nothing, Merchant of Venice, or As You Like It. In the twilight of his career, or in the last lap of his career, William Shakespeare focused on tragedies and the so-called problem plays. Which books are these? Tragedies of Shakespeare, or mature tragedies of Shakespeare, include books like King Lear, Othello, Coriolanus, Macbeth, Hamlet, Measure for Measure, The Winter's Tale. These are books he wrote when he was a mature Shakespeare towards the end of his career. These are the works that are mostly studied, performed today on stage, translated into many languages for the benefit of the world. Shakespeare was a genius, par excellence. Why is Shakespeare so popular today? There are a number of things that we will consider looking into in order to understand the enigma that is Shakespeare. Some of the most used quotations today emanated from the period of William Shakespeare. I'll look at three examples. The first example is Shakespeare is said to have said, "Love all, trust a few, do wrong to none." That is a life lesson. He was like a philosopher. At one time, he is also said to have pointed out that a fool thinks himself to be wise, but a wise man knows himself to be a fool. That was Shakespeare for you. In one of his comedies, Shakespeare points out, all the world is a stage, and all the men and women merely players. This is a life lesson. This dissects society. This is an indictment of society. Shakespeare was a realist. This is a realistic presentation of life. He talks about the mortality of man. This is also shown in one of his tragedies, in Hamlet, in the graveyard scene. Indeed, Shakespeare knew life was like the proverbial shadow. One moment it would be there, the next it would be gone. Those were the wise words of William Shakespeare. How come Shakespeare is still being studied so many centuries after his death? The man died in 1616, but people around the world still study his plays. What makes him special? What makes him move above the ordinary playwright, the ordinary dramatist? What is his influence? Why is he widely studied and performed today? Why translate his books into many languages across the world? To begin with, Shakespeare is a verbal genius. A quick browse through a Shakespearean play indicates the massive appeal Shakespeare has to the audience through the words that he uses, through the expressions that he uses. He's able to paint a picture using words, and that is one of the qualities that have made a Shakespearean play extraordinary. He's a master in crafting plots. His plot development, his use of suspense, his use of irony, his punning, he keeps the audience at the edge of their seats. Another area which has made Shakespeare popular is his literary subjects. Shakespeare focuses on literary subjects such as love, as in Romeo and Juliet. Romeo and Juliet is synonymous with love in the world. It has been turned into performances throughout the world. It has been turned into movies. It is a book without equal. It talks about true love. The Elizabethan and Jacobin era was a highly religious society. Christianity was the center of man's life. In fact, during this period, people believed God was the center of everything, in everything they did. That was the concept of Christianity. In most of his books, if not all his books, Shakespeare focuses on religion or issues to do with spiritualism. He also focuses on political chicanery, deception, as in books such as Hamlet, as in books such as Julius Caesar, as in books such as Macbeth, where people fight each other for political control. Shakespeare focuses also on moral decadence and on deception, e.g. in Measure for Measure, one of the problem plays, in which we find the morality of the people in Vienna is gone overboard, and Angelo, the acting Duke, tries to bring back the moral fiber of society. So Shakespeare subjects entice the world, and people rush to see his productions whenever they are ready. Because of his talent, his exceptional talent, Shakespeare is believed to have influenced other great writers, even the likes of Charles Dickens. He is also said to have influenced even the highly rated Sigmund Freud. It is believed Sigmund Freud used some of the concepts in Hamlet as a foundation of his theories. That is, when he looks at an important human dysfunction called the Oedipus Rex complex or the Electra complex. So he had a great influence on others came after him. Can a book written around 1608 or 1610 or 1609 or 1601 be relevant to today's society? That is a question that many have asked. Why study something that happened so long ago? But when we look deeper into the books of Shakespeare, we can say with a measure of accuracy that Shakespeare's books were prophetic. His works were prophetic. If you read books such as Macbeth, Hamlet, Antony and Cleopatra, King Lear, Measure for Measure, The Winter's Tale, Tempest, they reflect today. They reflect the dynamics of society in the current situation. For example, corruption. For example, conspiracy to remove someone from power. For example, family feuds. These are problems that are bedeviling the society today. So Shakespeare's books remain relevant. They remain relevant to the last. So Shakespeare brought us something we will never forget. He brought us the truth. He brought us reality. Shakespeare was realistic, and he tried to paint society using a brush that had not been used before. His works were not necessarily original, but they were captivating. The audience enjoyed them. That's why theater during Shakespeare's time was always a busy place. That's why Shakespeare made so much money. What happened when Shakespeare retired? William Shakespeare died in 1616. From around 1613, it is believed he had very little interest in London. He had bought so many properties in Stratford and was well known to be a commuter. The journey between London and Stratford took 3 days. Shakespeare enjoyed it all. He died in his hometown at the age of 52 and is buried at the Holy Trinity Church. Shakespeare left more than just books. He left a legacy of charity. The Shakespeare Birthplace Trust is a charitable organization, an independent charitable organization which continues to benefit society well after his death. It is in fact one of the greatest heritages he left. He left a heritage site. People visit, people pay money. Money promotes society. Society develops. He also promotes the enjoyment of literature. As when people get to the museum, there's a reading room. There is also a Shakespeare week which is observed. In the museum, there's a display of Shakespeare's first folio. It has 36 plays. So over 4 centuries later, we still celebrate Shakespeare's life, still celebrate what he did. We still celebrate what he left this world with. We still celebrate his birthplace. We still celebrate the Globe Theatre. We still celebrate how he brought England together through his plays. That is William Shakespeare. William Shakespeare might have died in 1616, but the legacy that he left will live on. The works that he produced, both plays and sonnets, will live forever. Shakespeare's works and all that he did during his life conforms to the old adage that when everything else dies or when everything else fails, art survives. Indeed, his art survives. His name survives. We continue to hear name Shakespeare wherever we are, in institutions, in the public, in schools, in universities, in colleges, in theaters, in movie houses. The name Shakespeare is synonymous with excellence, and his works were the mirror image to society. He reflected the English society, he reflected the world. All the plays that he wrote at different settings. At the end of the day, Shakespeare was talking about humanity. He was a product of humanity and he reflected humanity. The artist reflects what is going on. Shakespeare did that in the most outstanding way possible. Thank you for watching this episode. As this episode comes to an end, I would like to acknowledge that drama, like any other genre of literature, reflects what is going on in society. Shakespeare's works were a mirror to society, and Shakespeare reflected what was going on in the English society and in the world in the most outstanding way possible. Thank you for watching this episode. See you next time. Please do not forget to like what we deliver, subscribe to our channel, leave comments in the section below. Also click on the notification bell so that every time we upload a new video on the subject or related subjects, you'll be notified. It's goodbye for now.